Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the VAMS clinic setup and scheduling demonstration. We're just going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get settled on the line, and then we will begin. Okay. Once again, good afternoon and welcome to the VAMS clinic setup and scheduling demonstration. My name is Lindsay Stewart, and along with my team, we will be demoing some specific steps related to clinic setup and scheduling in VAMS. Joining me today will be Jenna Rowland, GR Dulac, and Shelby Keller. Next slide. So after our introduction, we will move into a review of the VAMS workflow. We will then, again, demo clinic setup and scheduling steps. We will focus in on some areas where there's been a little bit of complexity in getting things set up the proper way. We want to make sure everyone understands the discrete steps involved. We will then entertain any questions you have following the demonstration, and then we will close. Next slide. As a quick reminder here, we won't spend time talking about business process or operational guidance on this call. We will focus on the demo, and if we have those questions come up during this call, we will log those for a later response and make sure we circle back with more information. Another quick reminder here, if you didn't catch it in the beginning, this session is being recorded. So please govern yourself per your as it pertains to recorded sessions. All right, with that, we will move into the demonstration. I will just alert everyone that this demonstration is intended to be a true to life scenario. So you will see our leaders, our facilitators take on that persona. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to you, Jenna.
Thanks, Lindsay. So this workflow shows how the VAMS portals and their users interact with each other. There are a series of activities that each user will engage in that will trigger or allow an action on the part of another VAMS user. For example, the first step for everyone to begin using VAMS begins with the jurisdiction POC or point of contact, adding clinics and organizations or employers in VAMS so they can activate and register their accounts. As a reminder, in VAMS, an organization is any institution, association, company, or other group that will add critical infrastructure workers and other at-risk groups in VAMS to be considered for COVID-19 vaccination. An employer is one example of an organization, and we use the term employer coordinator to indicate the person within an organization who will be serving as the point of contact for the jurisdiction and adding workers into VAMS. By adding clinics and VAMS, this allows clinic points of contact, which will likely be the clinic administrators, to set up their clinic operating hours, vaccination stations, place inventory requests, and add other clinic users in VAMS so they are prepared to administer COVID-19 vaccination to recipients. It also allows employer coordinators to register their organization in VAMS and either add employees in the system themselves or request the jurisdiction POC to authorize policy-enabled registration. Detailed information about policy-enabled registration, or PER, is available in the user manuals. After the employer coordinators have added their workers or volunteers in VAMS, those workers become vaccine recipients and receive a registration email prompting them to complete the pre-screener, add their medical information in the system, and then schedule an appointment at one of the vaccination clinics. When the vaccine recipient arrives at the clinic, a healthcare professional will administer a vaccine. So now that we've reviewed the VAMS workflow, next slide, please. Let's get started with our clinic setup and scheduling demo. Today, I will be serving as JJ, the jurisdiction point of contact for the state of Michigan. As a jurisdiction POC, I was added in VAMS by CDC and received a registration email from vams@cdc.gov. So as I said, the first step for everyone to begin using VAMS is for me, the jurisdiction POC, to add clinics and employers in VAMS. I've been reaching out to clinics and employers and organizations in Michigan, and have most recently heard from John Montgomery, the clinic administrator for the MassVac clinic being set up at the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. I'm going to add his clinic in the system by adding the clinic's name, clinic's address, John's name, and email address, and selecting his clinic type. This will allow him, as the clinic administrator or POC, to activate his account and register his clinic so he can begin setting up his clinic schedule, which he will show us how to do today. I also heard from Matt with IIS Frontline Workers 2 weeks ago. He's an employer coordinator whose organization has critical infrastructure employees he wanted to add in the system so they can become eligible to receive COVID-19 vaccination. I added IIS Frontline Workers as an organization in VAMS by entering their name, the employer coordinator's name, which is Matt, and his email address. As soon as I did that, Matt got an email notification from vams@cdc.gov saying his organization has been identified as one that employs critical infrastructure workers, along with a registration link for him to click on and register his organization in VAMS. Once he did that, he began adding employees in the system so that they could register as vaccine recipients in VAMS. One of those employees, Sky Hutchings, has already registered as a vaccine recipient and received her first dose. Today, she will be showing us how to schedule an appointment for a time when she is eligible to receive her next dose. So now that I've added a clinic and an organization in VAMS, let's transition over to John Montgomery, the clinic administrator for the MassVac clinic being set up at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, for him to show us how he's going to set up his clinic and its schedule in VAMS.
Thanks so much. Before we get going here, this is just a reminder that this is not an end-to-end walkthrough of the clinic portal. If you wish to see a demo of all of the clinic administrator's roles and responsibilities within VAMS, please refer to the end-to-end demonstration on the awardee SharePoint site. For the rest of this walkthrough, I'll assume the role of John Montgomery, clinic administrator. Let's focus on the steps I'll take for setting up my clinic schedule. My jurisdiction POC made me the clinic point of contact in VAMS, so I received an email allowing me to activate my account in VAMS and finalize clinic setup. Now, since I've already completed these steps, I'll be pulling up my clinic portal homepage shortly and jumping right into clinic setup. All right, so today I will primarily be focusing on the clinic details, the clinic setup, and treatment stations tabs, as well as the clinic absences tab. On these tabs, we will be completing all steps needed for our clinic to appear to recipients in order for them to schedule appointments. One easy way to think about setting up the schedule is that it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, set the appointment duration. Second, set the operating hours. And third and finally, set up the treatment stations. These 3 steps will get you about 95% of the way there in terms of scheduling setup, with the last 5% being setting clinic absences, which we'll also cover today. First, let's go ahead and set our appointment duration by clicking on the Clinic Details tab. We'll go ahead and click the Edit button at the top left of the Clinic Details page, and from here, select an appointment duration that's either going to be 10, 15, 20, or 30 minutes. So this selection will apply to all of our treatment stations within the clinic and will determine how many appointments are available at each treatment station each day of operation. Before making the selection, keep in mind that the timing for the selection should include patient intake, vaccine administration, and some time to reset the station for the next appointment. For example, if we select our 30-minute appointment slot, the appointments are going to be scheduled, for example, from 9 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10, 10 to 10:30, and so on, with no buffer time built in otherwise. So now that we've gone ahead and selected our appointment duration, what we're going to do is go ahead and click Save. Now that our appointment duration has been saved, let's go ahead and set clinic operating hours to determine what hours will be open for our recipient appointments. This, along with the appointment duration and number of treatment stations, determines how many appointments our clinic can accommodate each day. So let's go to our Clinic Setup tab. Before setting hours, as the clinic administrator, I'm going to take some time to plan the weekly schedule for my clinic, including which days and hours I want my clinic to be open. Now, since we're already on the Clinic Setup tab, to set operating hours, I can click the Edit button in the upper right-hand corner. Now that we've done that, in this Edit Clinic Location pop-up window, I'm going to make sure that the Available for Scheduling checkbox is checked to start scheduling appointments. If I wasn't ready for recipient appointments, I'd uncheck this box, since my clinic will not be visible to recipients until this box is checked. Now, we'll scroll down a little bit farther and double check to make sure that my time zone is correct for my clinic's physical location and make any necessary changes. If the jurisdiction my clinic sits in is across multiple time zones, it is incredibly important to ensure I'm checking this. Otherwise, my clinic appointment time could populate in the wrong time zone. Next, the clinic start date will auto-populate to today's date, but it can be edited. After that, the last thing I need to do here is make sure that I'm entering an end date for my clinic. These two dates combined together will determine the first and last dates appointments can be scheduled. This also must be done for my clinic to be visible in VAMS. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and set an end date somewhere in the future, and after that, go ahead and click Save. From there, if I don't see my updates reflected on the clinic's locations details page, what I can do right now is go ahead and refresh the page one more time. And we'll see that my end date is populated there. And again, before proceeding on this page, if I wish to have recipients schedule appointments, as the clinic administrator, I need to ensure that the Available for Scheduling checkbox has been selected, that my time zone is correct, and that I've set my end date. Otherwise, recipients will not be able to register for appointments. Now that we've checked and added some information, I'll go ahead and click the Setup Operating Name and Operation Hours link at the bottom of the Clinic Location Details page. Here, I'll change the operating hours using the pencil icon to something a little more descriptive. You can do operating hours Monday through Friday, and go ahead and click Save. After that, what I'll do is I'm going to go to the Operating Hours tab, and from here, I'm going to go ahead and click New. All right, we'll double check, make sure that's my clinic operating hours. That looks good, auto-populates there. For the day of the week, let's go ahead and start on Monday. We'll go ahead, we'll enter in a start time for our clinic. For the purposes of this demo, let's say 9, and I'm going to want my clinic to end at 5 p.m. on a Monday. So I'm going to go to the drop down there and click Save. Now, that just gives us our Monday's date. For the second day of the clinic on Tuesday, let's say that I don't have enough staff to rotate lunch and we need to take an hour break from 12 to 1. To do this, I can split Tuesday's schedule up into 2 separate time slots, which is what we're going to do right here. For Tuesday's date, I'm going to go ahead and start off by saying the first time slot is going to be 9 a.m. all the way up to noon. And then we can click Save and New. And then for the next one, we'll also select Tuesday for our day of the week. And since we said we're going to build in that hour break for lunch, let's go ahead and select 1 p.m. for our start time. And for our end time, let's go and scroll down all the way to 5 p.m. Now, if we go ahead and click save, we'll notice that in our clinic operating time slots table, we have 2 different time slots set up for Tuesday with a built-in lunch break in between. That means that our recipients will not be able to schedule appointments during our lunch break. So now that we've gone ahead and done that, let's go ahead and we've clicked save. So before moving into the third step I've talked about before, setting the treatment stations, I'd like to go ahead and go back to our clinic portal homepage and check out our clinic absences tab. If there's a day of the week, such as a holiday, where there will be no appointments, I can set this here. And again, during a clinic absence, the system will show my clinic is closed and appointments will not be available to recipients. If I create a clinic absence during a time when recipients have already scheduled appointments, their appointments will be canceled and recipients will receive a cancellation notification via their preferred communication method. Now to set a clinic absence, we're going to click on the clinic absences tab like I already did and go ahead and select the new button in the right-hand corner. In this pop-up window, I'm going to go ahead and select my clinic. We're going to type in the clinic absence name. In this case, it's going to be Thanksgiving. The absence reason is it is a federal holiday. Then for the start date, we are going to go ahead and put in the 26th. And for the end date, go ahead and also put in the 26th and go ahead and click save. We see we get a warning saying that this update will cancel scheduled appointments and recipients will be asked to reschedule. That's okay. We go ahead and click save one more time and we'll see that our clinic absence is going to go ahead and populate within our clinic absences table. So here, I can also edit or delete them at any time by clicking the clinic name and then clicking that edit or delete button in that corner. Now that we've done that, finally, let's go ahead and complete the third main step in the scheduling process. Adding treatment stations allows me, as the clinic administrator, to have multiple appointments occur simultaneously. I'll set up at least 1 treatment station at my clinic for appointments to appear to recipients. The number of treatment stations and the appointment duration will determine how many appointments will be available to recipients during clinic operating hours. We can also note here that vaccination stations are currently called treatment stations in VAMS. Now, when setting up these treatment stations, I'll remember to set up the stations based on the planned number of healthcare professional staff. In addition, as we'll see later, one nifty part of treatment stations is that these hours automatically default to the clinic operating hours. And although we'll be covering that in a bit, I want to call it out now since this is a great way for me as the clinic administrator to save time when wanting to default stations to normal operating hours. Now let's use treatment stations to set up the number of appointment time slots that will be available for my clinic. So I've clicked on my treatment stations tab and now I'm going to go ahead and click new. From here, I can select my clinic's name from the dropdown. For the station, we're going to go ahead and put in station 1, just naming it in a way that makes it easy to differentiate between clinic stations. For the start date, we'll automatically default to today's date, which is what we want. And for an end date, let's put it on as the 30th. So these should be based upon how long I expect this treatment station to be open. And if I needed, I can also go in and edit these dates later. So from there, let's add in some station operating hours. We see at this point our only choice is new station operating hours, which is what we'll select. That'll bring up a new station operating hours pop-up window where we can name this whatever we'd like. Let's name it, in this case, standard operating hours. Just naming it in a way that'll make it be easy to differentiate from other hours. And we can go ahead and click save. And then we'll go ahead once more and click save. Now, as I mentioned before, if we stop here, our treatment station will default to the standard operating hours of the clinic. If I want to set up another clinic with the same standard operating hours, it even gets a little easier this time. From here, I can go back to my home page, go into my treatment stations once again. I'll go ahead and select new. I can select my clinic. We'll set up station 2. We have our start date in there and our end date. And I don't even need to, for my new station operating hours, we can go ahead and if my table scrolls down far enough, which doesn't look like it's doing right now, I should be able to go ahead and select standard operating hours like I already did before. And at that case, all we have to do is select that choice, click save, and then we're going to be all set. Remember that we haven't had to enter in the time on each day like we had to do when setting up our clinic operating hours, so this will save us a lot of time if we need to set up multiple clinic stations at once. However, if we want to have a treatment station hours that differentiate from the clinic hours, let's see what we need to do. First, we can go ahead and repeat some of those steps we've done already. So here we'll select our clinic, we'll put in our station name, station 2, our start date automatically populates to today's date. Our end date, we can move out to the 30th since that is where we made our operating hours before. And here's what I was just talking about is that I could select my standard operating hours from before. But in this case, since I want this treatment station to be open not during my normal standard clinic hours, I'll select new operating hours again. And in this case, we're just going to say Monday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. because we know that we're going to have some extra staff just during that time slot. Go ahead and click save. Then we can click save once more on our new treatment station pop-up window to be taken to the treatment station details page. Here, we can see that our standard operating hours link is right down here. What we're going to do is click on this, the Monday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. From here, we can see this is what we've named it. That looks good. So let's go ahead to our station operating hours. And since we just said this is going to be from Monday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., what we're going to do is for the day of the week, select Monday. The start time, we are going to make 9 a.m. And the end time, we are going to make 12 p.m. So from there, we can go ahead and click save. And now that treatment station is only going to be available at our clinic on Monday from the hours of 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So now that we've covered that, the one last thing I want to touch on is going to be our treatment station absences. For operating hours, we've talked about how we can use the clinic absences tab to override any operating hours associated with the treatment stations. However, if we just want to add in an absence to a treatment station, we can use the station absences tab to temporarily shut down one of the stations. So if I go back to my treatment stations tab and click on one of my stations, from here we can see our station details and our station absences. If I wanted the station to be shut down for whatever reason, all I'd have to do is click a new absence, search my station, we have station 1 here. I'd be able to put in an absence reason and then a start date and time and an end date and time for the absence, and then that treatment station would not accept appointments during that duration. With that being said, we've completed the clinic scheduling setup. Now let's just take a few more minutes to see what a full clinic setup looks like. To do this, recall from past demos that clinic administrators can be the clinic administrator of multiple clinics. So let's see what other clinics I'm in charge of. To do that, I'm going to go up next to my name and click on Switch Portals. From here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and go into the clinic portal, click on Access Portal, and from this page, I'm able to see all the clinics that I'm assigned to. Since we've just finished setting up Little Caesars Arena, let's take a look at the clinic that's already complete, our Jefferson Vaccination Clinic. Quickly here on our clinic homepage, we can see that there's inventory in the clinic, but let's just focus on our clinic schedule, especially our operating hours and treatment stations. So if I click on the clinic setup tab, we can take a look at our operating hours. Just like before, we're just going to click on our clinic name for the Jefferson Vaccination Clinic. We can see that it's already available for scheduling for appointments because this box is checked. In addition to that, our time zone appears to be correct, as well as we have an end date for our clinic. We can also go ahead and look at our clinic operating hours here and notice that we've had it set up for Monday through Friday. It looks like on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, we're able to get appointments all the way through from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Wednesday, we take a bit of a lunch break in between from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. in our appointments. So we have those 2 time slots set up for Wednesday. Now, let's take a look again at our treatment stations. Here, if we go to our treatment stations tab, we can see that we have 3 treatment stations set up. In our other clinic, they were labeled numerically, but here we just went alphabetically to help differentiate them. Remember that because we have 3 treatment stations, this means we have 3 time slots set up within each appointment duration. As we're about to see, once these treatment stations fill up at a particular time, They will not be available for our recipients to view. Now, with that being said, I'd like to pass it over to our recipient, Sky Hutchings, to show us how she will schedule her appointment at the Jefferson Vaccination Clinic.
All right, thanks, John. So as John said, my name is Sky Hutchings, and I have access to VAMS because Matt, the employer coordinator for IIS frontline workers, added me as a critical infrastructure worker, and I received a VAMS registration email back on November 2nd. I used that email registration link to create my VAMS account and complete my recipient registration. I then immediately scheduled my first vaccination appointment and have already received that first dose. So now I'm going to log into VAMS to schedule my second dose appointment by finding my clinic, selecting an appointment time, and then confirming and reviewing my appointment details. So when I'm logged into the VAMS recipient portal, you can see here on my appointments table that I received my first dose on Monday, November 2nd at the Jefferson Vaccination Clinic, and it shows a status of completed. I can also see here at the top of the screen that I have a notification to view my vaccination certificate for the first dose that I received on November 2nd. If I click that link to view my certificate, it pulls up this window here where I can see all the certificate details, and I also have this option to download as a PDF. That will bring up my certificate in PDF form, and if I want to print this, I can just right-click and select print or do Control-P. Now, if I go back to the recipient portal homepage here, I will initially see a second notification as well, just telling me when I'm eligible to receive my next dose. I also receive that reminder notification via my preferred contact method, which for me is my email address. So you can see here that I received this email saying I completed my initial appointment and my next one needs to be on or after November 16th. So if I click this link to schedule my next appointment, it's going to take me right back into VAMS where I can click the schedule appointment button. When I'm scheduling this appointment, I can either search for a clinic by address or zip code. And I want to go back to the same clinic where I received my first dose. So I'm going to enter in a zip code here. I can also change the search radius to be between 5 and 100 miles. So I'm just going to go ahead and say 100 and click search. So I can see here that there's both a map and a list view. If I click my clinic name in the list view here, Jefferson Vaccination Clinic, it highlights it on the map for me as well and also shows me their operating hours. If I scroll down just a little bit further, I see this next button has appeared. This button will only appear once I've selected my clinic's name in the list view. So now that it's there, I'm going to click next. And now I can choose a date from this calendar here on the left when I want to schedule my appointment. But you'll see that all the dates prior to November 17th are grayed out for me and I can't select them. And that's because if you remember my second dose is I'm not eligible for that until November 17th. So this ensures that I cannot schedule that second dose appointment prior to my earliest eligibility date. So I'm going to select the 17th and I see the available time slots here that for the 17th. And if you'll notice, there's a gap between 12:15 and 2:15, and that's because other recipients already scheduled appointments during that time. So it eliminates that option for me to also schedule there. So I'm just going to select another time slot instead and then click next. Giving me a chance to review everything I selected, make sure that it's all accurate. If I needed to make changes, I could here with previous, but it all looks good. So I'm going to click submit. And then I'll receive my appointment confirmation. I will also get this via my preferred communication method, which like I mentioned earlier is email. So I will get an email with this information as well. But for now, I'm going to return to the recipient portal and see this appointments table page again. And you can see here that for Tuesday, November 17th, I have my scheduled appointment at Jefferson Vaccination Clinic from 3:45 to 4. If I click view appointment here, I can see all of that information that I just got in my confirmation. This is also where I could cancel the appointment if need be. So that's how a recipient would find your clinic and would schedule their appointment. And that concludes our demo for today. So now we're going to open it up for questions. So please use the Q&A option in Zoom to submit any questions you may have, and our team will answer all that we can.
Thank you so much, team. Now we will move into our question and answer portion of today's demo. I'm going to turn it over to Susan, who is our VAMS lead.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, Sis, if you've attended these,